congratulate that team on,
Sorry.
no worries, on all the work on that because it was just incredible. Um, and some of my favorite things are actually the videos that you all made, and some of them cute and funny, and but all of them very engaging, and making this whole really complicated mess of making maps accessible for folks so that they really could understand what impact creating new maps has on their daily lives. And so congratulations on that.
Thanks. And Carlene,
um,
I might just on that note give a huge shout out to Bob Moline and Sophia Ferliti because they're the two that really made those come together.
Yeah, just really super well done. And it's also one of those things that you can see the evolution of the skill in making these things over time. Just super well done though. Absolutely super well done. And then your team didn't have such great luck, as I recall, on lobby day itself. Like your folks didn't show up, but your team was incredibly diligent and vigilant about making sure that your legislators did talk to you. And so these two pictures are actually not from Lobby Day. They're from a time after Lobby Day when you did manage to get your legislators to talk to you. And I know that Ann Leek was very instrumental in that, and I think Bob as well in making sure that happened.
And
So
Terry Schoonover too, who's also on the call.
okay, yeah, oh yeah, I know Terry. Yep, he's probably in one of those pictures. I didn't really analyze them. Um, and then the Twitter feed. I think that's probably Bob, and I did include the link in there to my favorite on all of the tweets when he did the thing about Robin Voss really does agree with us. I watched that again and again and posted it multiple times because it was so clear that that he was caught up in his own circle, he being Voss in his own circle of things that he says, and so uh, kudos to Bob for catching him in that. Then several of you traveled to Madison in October for the hearings. That was a long way to come, and just once again, that perseverance and vigilance in making sure things that this issue stayed in the forefront, and another huge effort in putting together the amicus brief um, with Laffey Lightner and Good, and making sure that we had plaintiffs from all 33 Senate districts. I think that's a picture of a call with all those folks. And it was such a well done piece, and I believe impacted how the justices ultimately decided. The next two slides are from those frigid, cold rallies in January, across the state we had over 1,000 folks show up, and your team put together two different rallies. I'm not sure what your total was on attendance. I did not go back and look that up, but I remember it being pretty substantial. So those are just a few of the things. I'm sure that I missed some, but I just cannot even begin to tell you how grateful I am for Janelle for your leadership on this, and also for the team of folks who were the core of WWMVD and making sure that voting districts and this whole process has been at the forefront of what people are thinking about as they make decisions about how they're going to vote, and that we will continue to do that. The next slide is about the next phase of the campaign, and for those of you who were at the monthly meeting last night, you know that we are in a transition period. We are going from just being focused on maps to focusing on more electoral issues. around voting rights and fair courts. And so I will be moving from the Fair Elections Project to a different fiscal home. And we are working on funding for that transition. So there will be another first of the month meeting next in May, the day before your meeting. So no worries that the program and the efforts are not going to poof go away. But we are in a transition time, as are you, and the the goal being making our democracy better and more accessible for more people. So thank you, and I can't say enough thank yous on that.
Well, Carlene, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for being here at almost every single monthly meeting we had. Amanda, thanks for being backup when Carlene couldn't make it. And I know I speak for the entire team that we're just so grateful for your leadership. It was so wonderful to plug in to the things that you were organizing at the statewide level and hearing your updates about what's happening. It was so energizing to know that our efforts were being combined with other teams across the state to create change. So thank you.
Absolutely. And I look forward to some of the things that we're doing as we transition being things that you're also working on. I know that you have a focus on Final Five, but the courts and voting rights are also a big piece of what makes things accessible. So I anticipate that we will continue to collaborate.
Absolutely. I'm sure we will. But in the meantime, just because we're capping this off, everyone, if you want to just give a big, huge round of applause to Carlene. Thank you so much.
And to you.
From the bottom of our hearts. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I'm sorry I was late.
It's okay. No worries. We're very flexible here. So I'm going to just, instead of making everyone dizzy and flipping through all the slides, actually, I might just stop sharing because I don't think we have any slides. Mel Barnes, welcome. Mel is joining us from Law Forward. Most of you probably know her because she's been giving us updates on where the maps are at. So thanks for being with us again, Mel. And I give you the floor.
Awesome. Thanks, Janelle. Like Carlene, I was also running slightly late. We were coming off a Law Forward staff retreat today. So I'm very excited to be with all of you, although I love being with my coworkers all day. So I will start with a little update on kind of where we are with the maps in the courts and everything that's going on, and then talk about what comes next. This has been a bit of a longer journey and legal fight than I think any of us would have anticipated. Kind of the start of both state and federal litigation about redistricting in Wisconsin this cycle, there was some pretty widespread agreement, including from the Wisconsin Elections Commission, that new maps really needed to be in place by March 1st in order for them to smoothly conduct elections on the new districts in our state. So even though the primary isn't until August, there's a ton of work that rolls into that. And if any of you are local clerks or volunteers, you know that there are many, many steps, including helping candidates prepare and circulate nomination papers that happen before that primary. So you may have noticed we are now well into April, and where we're at is the US Supreme Court has sent the state legislative maps back to the Wisconsin Supreme Court. So congressional districts are in place for Wisconsin. Those were proposed by Governor Evers at the Wisconsin State Supreme Court. The Wisconsin State Supreme Court adopted those, and they were then challenged to the US Supreme Court. However, the US Supreme Court rejected the challenge to congressional districts. That means those are in place, they're already decided, and we will move forward with the 2022 elections on those districts. However, at the same time, the US Supreme Court accepted a challenge to the state legislative districts and sent them back to the Wisconsin Supreme Court. So I want to talk about that decision and what it means, but most importantly, I want to talk about what it doesn't mean. So the US Supreme Court did not say that the governor's proposed legislative districts were unconstitutional or illegal in any way. They did not say that they violated the Voting Rights Act. Despite some of the media coverage, they did not say that these maps were unlawful. What they said was the Wisconsin Supreme Court didn't really show its work in the opinion that it wrote. It didn't include enough analysis of the Voting Rights Act to support the districts that it adopted. Now, why did that happen? There was a very full record before the Wisconsin Supreme Court about all of the Voting Rights Act issues. As Law Forward, we represented Block, Voce La Frontera, the League of Women Voters, and some individual voters for the court. We put a ton of expert evidence into the record regarding the Voting Rights Act and why it required 7 majority Black districts in the Milwaukee area. However, the Wisconsin Supreme Court, in its opinion, was dealing with multiple different factors and decisions. It spent most of that decision discussing the least change criteria that it set forth in November and why the governor's maps best complied with the least change criteria in their reading of things. So honestly, the Wisconsin Supreme Court did not spend a ton of time talking about the Voting Rights Act. And part of that was because many of the pieces of the Voting Rights Act analysis weren't really disputed before the Wisconsin Supreme Court. So, for example, one of the things that you need to show in a Voting Rights Act challenge is that minority communities protected by the Voting Rights Act are sufficiently compact and large to qualify for protections. Now, everyone in Wisconsin knows that Milwaukee continues to be one of the most segregated cities in the country. So again, there wasn't a ton of dispute about that at the Wisconsin Supreme Court. Personally, I think that is one of the reasons that the Wisconsin Supreme Court didn't spend a ton of time on that factor analyzing this in their opinion. They spent much more time talking about the least change analysis, talking about the congressional districts. In short, there was a lot going on in that opinion. So the US Supreme Court, taking up this challenge, said, hey, you didn't really show your work on the Voting Rights Act issue. And it sent the state legislative maps back to the Wisconsin Supreme Court. So those maps are back at the Wisconsin Supreme Court, but the Wisconsin Supreme Court could decide to adopt the same exact maps, the governor's proposal, and just issue an opinion with more reasoning, kind of showing their work and backing up the voting rights analysis. They could also decide that because the Voting Rights Act analysis doesn't support 7 districts in Milwaukee, in their opinion, that they will reconfigure that part of the map, keep the rest of the governor's map, but include 6 VRA districts in the Milwaukee area. They could adopt an entirely different set of maps, but I think what we know right now from the Wisconsin Supreme Court is that they're not going to take additional evidence. They're not going to schedule more hearings, more briefing, more evidence about these maps. They're going to make a decision based on the record that was before them, before the US Supreme Court took up this issue. And like I said, we think that that evidence is complete. It is compelling. It fully supports 7 Black majority districts in the Milwaukee area. The governor has also reasserted that with the court. And honestly, we are just waiting now to see what the Wisconsin Supreme Court does with regard to these maps. Whatever the court decides, those will likely be the maps that are in place for the 2022 election, because we are really past the date when we need to have these districts in place so that candidates can know where they're eligible to run, make a decision about running, start circulating nomination papers, get on the ballot, have clerks print those ballots, distribute the ballots, do all the things that we need to do for voting in the August primary and then the November election. So while there might be other legal challenges to these maps after the Wisconsin Supreme Court rules, for example, if the Wisconsin Supreme Court now decides they're going to reject the governor's maps, accept the maps proposed by the legislature that only included 5 Black majority districts, which we think violates the Voting Rights Act, we could then go to federal court and challenge those districts. However, it would be really unlikely that a court would put those districts on hold for the 2022 election, knowing that those elections are so close. Quite frankly, the US Supreme Court's interference in Wisconsin's elections at this really late date was unprecedented and very surprising. So we are really on the eve of elections at this point, and I think that is likely that whatever the Wisconsin Supreme Court decides next, those districts will be in place for the 2022 elections. So we already know what our congressional districts are. We're waiting to see what the state legislative districts are, although it is entirely possible that they are exactly the same districts proposed by the governor and adopted by the court previously. So for our clerks and our hardworking local election officials, this is stressful. It puts them in a tough position to be doing more work at the last minute. And I know it's creating uncertainty for candidates across the state who are considering whether or not they're going to run. But we hope that the Wisconsin Supreme Court will act quickly, that they will issue this decision and get us back on track for administering our elections shortly. This decision could come as soon as tomorrow, and that wouldn't be unexpected. But again, as we get closer and closer to April 15th, which is the first date that candidates can start circulating those nomination papers, and therefore need to know what their new districts are, we are really running out of time to make changes to these districts. So we expect that decision to come soon, and then we'll see if there are other legal challenges that result after that decision, though they're unlikely to impact the 2022 elections. I will stop there and turn it back to Janelle.
Thank you so much, Mel. You're very good at explaining that. It's a lot of moving pieces, but thank you for making it clear. And just a real big shout out to Law Forward for the great role that they've played in all of this litigation and willingness to keep going to the end and maybe bring another lawsuit in the federal courts. And so that's been really extraordinary. It feels so good to know that we have a law firm that's working for our democracy, an extremely talented and well-equipped law firm. But I also just want to point out that we really appreciate Law Forward's commitment and your commitment, specifically, Mel, to bringing all of this news to grassroots groups like ours and being so available to help us understand everything. So thank you very, very much for being here.
Of course. Thank you guys for all of your hard work making the Supreme Court care about this and know that the public is watching. It does really make a difference.
Awesome. Thank you. And then I know I heard Carlene say yesterday that the Fair Maps Coalition will have another webinar when the new maps come out. So stay tuned for that. If you're not getting the communication directly from the Fair Maps Coalition, go to fairmapswisconsin.com and sign up there. And then you'll be sure to get the notification when the new maps come out, and you'll be able to hear from experts through the Fair Maps Coalition to be completely 100% in the loop. So thank you very much, everyone. So we're going to switch gears a little bit. We've heard about the maps. We've heard about what's happening with the Fair Maps Coalition. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We're going to have updates from our teams. You know that we're kind of winding down with WWNBD right now. So there aren't quite as many updates, but there are a couple we want to share with you before we talk a little bit about debriefing. So I think Bob's here. Do you want to give this update?
Yes. Hi. Thanks, Janelle. This is an interesting one. This is an interim activity, this Chamber of Commerce presentation. What we want to do is we want to create some favorable relationships and gain allies with local business leaders. We believe local businesses are adversely impacted by gerrymandering in ways that large multinational corporations are not. So this is kind of an untapped area for us, but that might be, we might be able to find some supporters there. We want to do this specifically by listening and discussing and learning with relatively little presenting and no lecturing at all. We're not preaching to them. These are listening sessions, but we also don't want to come empty-handed. So we've investigated one particular issue, and that is staffing and government policy. So we put together this presentation using Janelle's contacts with Russ, I cannot recall his last name. Porpella, thank you, Janelle. In River Falls, we've got a meeting set up with the River Falls Chamber of Commerce, and we'll be pulling in a professor from one of the local universities, and then we'll be there, I think, to maybe take part in question and answer session. But this started before we really got the strategic planning rolling. So we think of it as an interim activity. It may turn out to be very useful, and we would extend it to several other chambers of commerce. Or if it doesn't align with our strategic intent and any tactics we decide upon, well, then it's just this one-off activity that we'll take part in very soon. I think that's it for that, Janelle. Thank you.
Super. Thank you, Bob. Awesome. And I'm going to give the writing team update. There's a team of writers that have been putting out awesome articles, letters to the editor. I know Amanda's used a few of our letters for statewide. We've borrowed a couple from the statewide as well. So that's been a really good exchange. And Irene on this call, Maureen, I know Carolyn has helped us submit articles. So I'm trying to see if there's anyone I'm missing on this call. Yeah, Maureen, but many people have been involved with writing articles and getting them out there, and we've had a good amount of success. I'm really pleased with that. And writing letters to the editor and getting the word out may still be part of our tactics moving forward. We don't know yet. But just to cap off what we've been doing in March, 4 letters were published in local area newspapers. Map Should Be Fair was a letter of the editor written by Maureen. It got published in 4 papers. New Maps article, which Maureen wrote, which got published, Irene wrote and got published once. And I think that was a little bit because some newspapers used other articles like through the AP to publish. So a lot of the newspapers had an article to put in there, but really glad that for the newspaper that didn't, we were able to use the one Irene wrote. And be an informed voter. And coming up this spring, Daffodils, Tulips, and Election Day, Anne Marie and Michael wrote really motivational and informational letters to the editor about getting out to vote in the spring election. And those both got published 3 times. And just because there's a fair amount of League of Women Voters members on here tonight, a huge shout out. There was one time where I got the Baldwin Bulletin, which is my local paper, and there were 4 letters to the editor about voting, and it was just beautiful. I was so pleased, and 2 of those were from the League of Women Voters. So really great joint effort there right around the elections. So great job, writing team, and we'll see what's next on that front coming up. And so I just want to spend a few minutes, let's see. Yeah, I was gonna do breakout rooms, but I think we're just gonna stay in one big room. Because we're a little short on time, and because I know some people are not the biggest fans of breakout rooms. I, in theory, sometimes am not, but when I get into a breakout room, I always find that I have a really great conversation. But anyway, what I'd love for us to take a few moments to do is just think a little bit about our involvement. Some of us have been involved since the very beginning. Some have come along the way. All of us have different amounts of time or energy we've put into the effort, but all of us here care about strengthening our democracy and the work that we've done. So I'd love to hear just a little bit of feedback from people. What is one thing that you loved about your involvement with WNED and why? And then next we'll talk about what would you do differently if we were to redo this all over, knowing what we know now, what would we do differently? And this is really just to start you thinking, because I'm going to send you in the follow-up a little questionnaire that you can submit anonymously, or you can provide your info as you wish. And I'll have this link in the follow-up email. But I would really love to hear from you, because this is our first Strengthening Democracy project that Pierce County Grassroots Organizing has done. And we really, really want to be learning, improving. We want to make the most change possible. And in order to do that, we really want to be as impactful as possible. And I think if we're systematically learning from everything that we're doing, we will get better and better and better. And so I'd love to put the learnings from this project into the next project and just have continuous learning. So your input is highly valuable. So just curious, would a few people like to come off of mute and think about one thing that you really loved about your involvement with WWNVD and why?
Can I do that first and then I'm going to go so that you can have a conversation with one another?
Sure.
Um, I just really love that this group has been willing to share statewide the things that you are doing. And for me, as an organizer statewide, many of the things that you have started have been a really wonderful model for me in the things that I try to then um, grow. And your writing group is a great example of that. When Amanda came on, she was able to connect with you all and learn some things. It wasn't something I could do on my own. It was just too many things. But that kind of thing, and not being territorial about what you're doing and sharing, kind of sharing your knowledge and your experience is just, I love collaborating, and it has been just such a gift, and I appreciate that very much. And I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you. I'll see you. I'm sure I'll see you. There's no doubt in my
You
mind.
will, Carlene. Thanks.
And
Thank you.
I'm just putting my email and stuff in the chat for anybody who doesn't have it. So thanks, y'all.
Thank you. Awesome. Maureen, do you want to go next? Or are you saying goodbye, maybe? Any?
I was saying goodbye, but
Yeah.
I really enjoyed. I enjoyed meeting people. I feel as if maybe if I ever meet Irene, we'll just be buddies. We've been on enough calls together and helped each other with our writing enough, and so that was definitely. The other thing is, it was a good piece of an enormous task, strengthening democracy, but it seemed like if we could just get that one punched, if we could end gerrymandering, it would be such a step toward towards strengthening the democracy. And I really felt like we had a shot there for a while, and think that we may in the future have one. So that was another part of it.
Thank you. Bob?
I like this in that we were working with so many creative people. And the best example I can give of that is even when we were doing things that my initial impression was, oh, I don't see how that's going to work. When Don Leek was so passionate about that map contest, and I thought, oh, do we really want a contest? But at the same time, you could see he had a vision. So I just followed what Don told me to do. And it worked out so well. And in its own way, I think it helped set the stage for that WeMaps group. So the people with vision, even when I couldn't see it, it was worth following.
Thank you. Anne?
Janelle, a lot of this wouldn't be possible without your wonderful leadership. So you inspired me with your great leadership skills. So I think you made WWNVD possible, along with, I agree with Maureen, all the great people that are on this call and all the great people we met and worked with over the last year.
Thank you. Carolyn?
Hi. Yeah, I agree with Anne. Thank you for your leadership. But one of the things you did was the networking you did to bring in really quality speakers to our monthly meetings. Mel Barnes is a gift, and she's just one of dozens of people that you were able to connect with and bring to us. And I feel so much smarter because of all that they shared with us. So that's something I loved about this gathering.
Thank you. Do we want to do one more? Anyone else? Or we can move on to learning. Don?
Yeah, I'll pitch in one thing. We didn't forget to have fun. The Mappy hours, other meetings, picnics, when we finally got to meet face to face, I think that's one of the things. I mean, the people is the main one. Connecting with people across the state. I know I would never have talked with or met the people from North Shore if it wasn't for this project. So I really like the connections that were made statewide.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. What would you do differently?
Well, since my hand is still up, I'll just say I wish I got started earlier. I'm just a year into this project, but overall, an earlier start would have been better.
Anne?
Not wasting time on the legislators who were not going to listen to us no matter what we did. So I think we could have put that energy into somehow a different way to try to convince people to quit the gerrymandered maps. That was not successful.
Yep. Thank you. Good learning. Bob?
It's not that we didn't make small attempts at this, but I would continue or maybe increase our efforts to get outside our bubble, to get people with different viewpoints in and reach them in some, even if we didn't agree, but to get in front of them and at least have them hear us and hear them.
Great. Really good learnings. One last one. Anyone else? No? Okay, I'm gonna keep going then. Let's see. So I will be sending you a questionnaire. So keep these thoughts going. We really want to these. This is really helpful, fantastic start. So thank you for sharing here. And I hope you all take the time to fill out the questionnaire and provide your feedback so we can really be learning as much as possible. And this whole meeting is kind of a passing of the baton, but I just want to say that I've really, really, really enjoyed working with all of you. You all know that my background is in the corporate world, so this is all new to me. And I just really want to thank each and every one of you for not being scared of my lack of experience and just being on this road with me of just learning and trying what we can and you know, finding experts when we could and trying to make the right decisions every moment of the way. But we're all learning together, and I really appreciate it. And I give a plus to the meeting people. This has been really life-giving, and most of you I did not know before this project, and I really treasure each and every relationship. So thank you. And on that note, I am going to pass it over to Bill, who's going to share with us a little bit about what's coming. And I'll stop sharing, right? Or am I not sharing?
Sure. Yeah, that sounds good. I can start sharing. Passing the baton and the PowerPoint.
Yeah. Hold on.
Here, I think I can just steal it from you.
Okay, yeah, do that because my things are funny. There we go.
Okay. Can you all see this? Awesome. Thanks. It's good to see everybody. I love hearing all the takeaways you had from what was really a beautiful project, and hearing what you learned and what you think you did great, what we could do better next time. And I'm glad we did that, because there is a next time. And we're passing the baton to ourselves here. So I'm really happy about to be a part of the next phase and to be involved. I echo what everybody said. It's just been great getting to know all you and feel your passion. And so I'm just gonna dive into kind of like the big unveiling of what's next. And first, I just want to say this is the folks who have stepped up and who have helped become the leadership team that's going to that's been planning the next phase of the work now that the redistricting process is winding down. So we've got Grace Caggio, we've got Ann Leek, Maureen Ash, Allison Page, Anne-Marie McClellan, Bob Moline, Janelle, and myself. And this team has already put in about 12 hours of meetings. So taking the process very seriously and wanting to be thoughtful about where we can have the most impact and how our resources can be focused, so that we're really moving the needle in a way that we can actually see and measure. And so this team calls itself, because every good team needs a name, right? I joked with them, it's not just the Green Bay football team, it's the Green Bay Packers. And so this team calls itself Power Forward, and it's a play on words in multiple ways. Power, because we need to build power with each other to get the change we want. Forward is a play on the state motto of Wisconsin, forward motion. But then we also realize it's a play on basketball, because that's a position in basketball. So we plan on slam dunking and doing a lot of full court presses in the work that we're doing ahead. So first of all, I just want to, before I let you know like what this team is envisioning, I just want to ask everybody to give this team so far a huge round of applause for the work they've invested in helping try to think strategically about how we can organize together over the next 6-12 months. So the team is still kind of halfway through the process. The team has gotten so far as thinking about their values and what they care most about, thinking about their shared purpose. Why do they exist as a team? Thinking about how to operate as a team, like some of the nitty gritty questions, like how do we make decisions? How do we want to have our meetings? And then setting themselves up to have the discussion around what is our goal? Like what is the bullseye that we're shooting towards? And what the team hasn't done yet, and that we can't share with you tonight, is we haven't thought tactically yet. So we haven't thought about what are the actual actions that we could take over the next 12 months to get us to our goal. But this is our goal statement. Maybe anybody who's off mute, someone could just volunteer to read this out loud, because sometimes it's nicer just to hear it and you don't have to hear my voice too much. Could somebody volunteer and just come off mute, read it out loud, please? Ann Leek, could you do it? Thank you.
Yes. Thank you for asking.
Yeah.
Our strategic goal: we will build relationships, promote civic engagement, and organize residents to demand that legislators pass Final Five and ranked choice voting in Wisconsin legislation in 2023 in order to reduce extreme partisanship and divisiveness in politics.
Thanks, Ann. I want to assure you the team did not just pull this sentence out of its butt. We went back and forth for a couple hours, honestly, back and forth around. There was thoughts about like working on, just voter turnout and voter registration and that kind of stuff, and we really thought about it hard, and the team ended up moving more in this direction. So it was a really great process to be a part of. And as you read, the goal is to build support locally in our area to help pass election reform in 2023 through the state legislature to get Final Five voting and ranked choice voting passed in Wisconsin. We feel like we're in a really good place in the state to get our legislators on board to make that happen. And I'm just curious, maybe a show of hands, how many of you are like not exactly sure what this Final Five thing is? Maybe you've heard about it. Okay. That's great, because what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you a 2-minute video. It just gives you an overview on what is Final Five. And then I want to pass the mic over to Senator Smith, who's really been a leader on this issue down in the legislature, and let him share with you his thoughts on what our strategic goal is and why it's important. And you know what? I don't know if I've shared my sound, so I have to come off of share. Yeah, I did not. So bear with me. Okay, can you all see this now? I can't see you, so could someone just say yes?
Yep, all good.
Thank you, Janelle. Okay.
Washington is broken. Over the years, it's the only political statement Americans agree on. Worse yet, we've come to accept it as fact. Newsflash, Washington is not broken. It's doing what it's designed to do. It's polarized, it's gridlocked, it's lost. The solution to revitalizing our democracy by reinstating healthy competition and ensuring accountability of elected officials lies in a combination of top 5 primaries and ranked choice voting. This system of top 5 primaries and ranked choice voting yields several benefits. For starters, it reduces partisanship. Candidates must appeal to the majority of voters in order to be elected. Ranking candidates in order of preference gives people the opportunity to vote for their favorite candidate without fear of helping their least favorite candidate get elected or feeling pressured to vote for the lesser of 2 evils. It's been shown to reward candidates who run more positive campaigns rather than ones who malign other candidates, because it's important to be people's second, third, and fourth choices too. Here's how it works. With top 5 primaries, all candidates are listed on the same primary ballot. The top 5 vote getters, regardless of their partisan affiliations, advance to the general election. The general election is where ranked choice voting comes into play. The 5 candidates who won the primary election are listed on a general election ballot. Voters can then rank each of those 5 candidates in order of preference. The candidate who achieves the majority of votes, over 50%, is the winner. Unlike our current system where candidates can win the election without having the majority of the votes, if no one gets a majority, the candidate with the fewest votes is eliminated. Voters who selected that candidate as their first choice now have their second choice counted. This process of elimination and counting the next best candidate continues until one person achieves more than 50% of the total votes, resulting in the candidate with the broadest appeal winning the election. With top 5 primaries and ranked choice voting, every vote counts and every voice is heard.
So I hope that was a helpful, just like really just quick snapshot explanation. The reason one of the few of the reasons we chose this goal was, one, we really wanted to challenge ourselves to pick a goal that was focused on a single outcome, so that we were really using our resources to do one thing and using our resources well, rather than to do many things maybe not so well. And we also wanted to pick a goal that was motivational, that people really could feel like they wanted to get involved with, to join us with. And we think this is motivational, because this has the potential to transform the way we elect candidates, and like the video said, elect candidates who are less on the extreme polarizing ends, and possibly set us up maybe in a decade from now, when it's time to redraw the maps again, set us up for a win in gerrymandering in 2030. So we're excited about this, and I want to just now pass the mic to Jeff Smith and hear his thoughts on that. Thanks for being with us tonight, Jeff.
Thanks, Bill. And Janelle, I got to thank you for all that you've been doing for what is also my passion, is redistricting reform, and all of you that all you've done. So I don't want you to think, like Bill, I think just alluded to, this is not the end of redistricting reform. And by shifting gears a little bit to a more strategic focus, we're not just giving up on redistricting reform. All of these things have to happen. I'm a huge advocate. In fact, got into politics because I believe in public funding of campaigns, and of course that hasn't happened yet. Of course, redistricting reform is so important as well, and there's a number of things that have to happen. And then this, and ranked choice voting, I've always been a fan of, but then this idea of actual final 5 came along. And there's a number of reasons that I like this idea. Democracy Found had approached me with this idea, and they were working on a couple of different states, and so for doing this thing, and we also focused on, they decided actually that we're just going to stick to the congressional races for now, the federal races, and that also puts us in a position, well, the legislators who pass this aren't affecting their own races, and they might be more likely to do something like this. So there's a lot of strategic thinking going on here, how we get something done. And I would also say an advantage of this, and I'll get more into the actual details of this, but the other advantage of this is going back to redistricting reform. We need to start convincing people strategically that they are progressive thinkers and that they do like reform that works for voters and actually brings us back together. And I really do believe that Final Five, the idea of Final Five, naturally will change the way not only campaigns are run, but also the way legislators behave after the election. They just cannot be slinging arrows at their opponents or at different groups of people, because they're going to need them if they want to be reelected. They're going to have to start listening more. They have to work together. They'll have to work together with their colleagues. That's something I dearly, dearly wish was happening right now in Madison. But in this particular bill, that's a whole other thing I think is so important, is that Democracy Found helped me by enlisting Republicans to co-sponsor this bill with me, to co-author the bill with me. I have introduced over 100 bills in my 4-year term, and this is the only bill that I've had a hearing on, because of course the majority party determines where bills go in committee, and they also then determine whether or not they get hearings or whether they get votes. And the minority party doesn't get any of those. But when this bill had what they considered to be a vulnerable Republican actually as my co-author, we got a hearing. We had a hearing that got a lot of attention. And in that hearing, 72 people actually registered for, and many of them spoke in favor of this bill. No one registered against it, and no one spoke against it, and it went really well. Now, I want you to know that we've also had events that Democracy Fund have set up, a couple of them, or one of them they set up, and another one was set up by Veterans for Political Innovation. And the Veterans for Political Innovation, if you may imagine, are not necessarily lefties and way off into left field in progressive world. They're very mixed, but a lot of very conservative people, and they love this idea. But the event that Democracy Found set up was at when I had to show up at this event, I was a little out of my world. It was at a pretty ritzy country club down by Milwaukee, and some very wealthy people who are also very excited about this idea. And when I talked to them, it was, well, I'm a Republican, but I really like this idea. Well, I'm a Republican and I want this to happen. Well, I'm a Republican and my legislators aren't listening to me, and I think this is how we can have it happen. So they have really found a place with it. Ranked choice voting didn't seem to appeal to them, but now this idea, Final Five, seems to have an appeal. And to demonstrate that, one state has already passed this, and we're going to see how it works this fall. And that state is Alaska. And I don't think you'll find a more conservative state, maybe Texas, than Alaska is. And I am really excited to see how this is going to work in Alaska. Now they went Final Four. Ours is Final Five, but it's just the same. It's the same method. It's just a little different version, and I'm really excited to see that. And the reason I'm pounding that idea is that this is where we can attract people from both sides of the aisle, or both philosophies in the public. I don't like the aisle thing because that's only if you're elected. But we need in the public. We need people who have different philosophies on many things to come together on one idea like this and realize, hey, we all want the change that we expect democracy to become, and that is our legislators working together, our Congress working together for the greater good. And when they see that this is the way to happen, we can go back to our camps on different issues, but this is the one that that we can come together on. And once we come together on this, I always talk a lot about building relationships. This is a way we build a political relationship within our communities, within our state, and realize that we're not all monsters to Republicans. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a monster to all Republicans, and all Republicans are not monsters to me or other Democrats. I am really think this has real great potential, and I am really excited that you all have chosen to make this a focus of yours, because we've got to be building towards next year what we're going to introduce early on in the session, and then how we're going to proceed from there on to make this a reality. And I would entertain questions for sure about what's happening.
Thanks, Jeff. We're going to keep moving because we're tight on time. But I want to have everybody give Jeff a round of applause and thanks for his leadership on this legislation. And Jeff, we're excited to help provide grassroots support to make this happen in 2023. And I also want to just let folks know that similar to the work around gerrymandering, there is an emerging statewide coalition that's coming out on this issue. And so we are not going to be the only ones in the state. We are going to be able to plug in with other groups that are paddling in the same direction as us. So just want to let you know, we're not going to be on an island with this work. This is going to be all of us working together across Wisconsin. With that, yeah, stay tuned for more details. Next month, we hope to have a campaign plan, and we hope to have some more details about how you can get involved and what role you can play. So the team meets again Sunday night to try to answer some of those questions. So thanks, Jeff, and thanks everybody on the team, and thanks everybody for listening. Now I'll pass it over to Janelle.
Awesome. Cool. I'm so excited. This is very, very fascinating. So I'm going to, everyone can see my screen. So we at PC Grow is the organization that started WWNVD, and that this democracy work is a part of. And we have identified that we have a lot of opportunities to do more than what we're doing. We've got this democracy project in Pierce County. We have a deep canvassing project that's launching, an environmental project. We've been doing work around broadband expansion, getting ARPA funds allocated so that everyone, regardless of how rural their home is, can have access to the internet and join calls like this and participate in society to the full extent. So we would like to grow our team. Some of you may have noticed that the reminder email I sent today about our meeting included going out to vote. That's an example of why we need a communications manager, because probably a communications manager wouldn't make a mistake like that. So we're looking for a part-time communications manager. If you're interested in applying, please do. If you're willing to share the word, that would be really helpful. And I'll share all the links. And if you get a chance, Bill, they're in the, well, they're on our website, and then they're also in the notes down there. We're looking for a field organizer for base building. This is deep canvassing work, really, really fascinating, going to door, having long conversations with people to listen and understand our community better. And that can be a part-time or a full-time position. And then we'd like to hire someone to help with this project, Final Five and ranked choice voting. And that also can be a part-time or full-time. You can see we're desperate. No, we're not really desperate. We just want to give a lot of flexibility. You know, we're a small organization, and there's a lot of ways of creating positions to do this kind of work. So help us spread the word, please. Another thing that I would like to encourage you to do is we are working on raising $5,000 from people from our community, people that have participated in our projects. We'd like to raise that money by April 15th, which isn't that far away. And we currently have $1,000. So thank you to everyone on this call who's donated. We have been funded through a handful of foundations have given money to our project. A few large donors have, but we cannot be sustainable financially unless we have a base of people. So we want to be like those campaigns, where the average donation is $10 and everyone gives. That's what we want. So I really encourage you to make a donation to our work, and that'll make us really, really sustainable over the long haul. It'll also make us independent, so we don't have to rely on what some large donor wants us to do or what a foundation wants us to do. We'll have complete liberty to do what we, the people in the community, think is most important. So I really encourage you I said $10, but I encourage you to think of a large number to donate to us, whatever that means to you, and then double that number and then make your donation. But your support means a lot to us and will allow us to operate really sustainably well into the future. So please consider that. And then do I pass it over to you, Bill?
Yeah, I can share about this. Janelle alluded to our deep canvassing project, which is where we're going to be going door to door around Pierce County this summer, having conversations, two-way conversations with anybody who will talk with us. And this is kind of like the other side of the work. Like, yes, we need to make these big policy structural changes to reduce polarization, to resolve the dividedness, but we also need to relearn how to talk to each other again and how to listen to each other as human beings. And this project is an attempt to do that. If that's something that appeals to you, we've got a training for you where you can learn some of these skills and then take those skills and put them to work in River Falls on Saturday, May 7th. And I don't need to say any more about that other than if you have questions about what this is involved, what's involved with this, feel free to reach out to me. We also have a link on the website where you can read more. And I promise some people think it's scary to knock on a stranger's door, but I think if you give it a try, you'll find it very inspiring and very hopeful because you make connections with people that you maybe never thought you would. So if this appeals to you, and if you've got Saturday, May 7th free on your calendar, we'd love to see you. And there's I dropped the link in the chat if you want to learn more.
Thanks. And Bill, I don't know if we had the best communication. Are you doing this one or am I doing this one?
You are.
Okay, awesome. So many of you know our sister organization, I like to think of them, North Shore Fair Maps has a monthly meeting next week. They're going to be talking about how to communicate about these big questions. So it's going to be specifically, the example will be Fair Maps, but this way of communicating about political issues can be applied to any issue. So if you're curious how to craft a message that can motivate people to create change and engage people, I encourage you to go to the meeting. It'll be, it's all of us, the more we can learn about messaging, the better. So I encourage you to take that opportunity to learn a few tricks with North Shore Fair Maps. And we didn't fully communicate all this, but I'll just keep going. And do you want to take it back, Bill?
You can go for it. Go for it. You're
Okay.
on a roll.
All right. Next meeting is again on Thursday. Just the same schedule as now. You'll get a new link. So this link is the one you've been using, won't work anymore. You'll get a new one, but we'll let you know with plenty of head notice. But yeah, stay tuned. As Bill said, the tactics, all of the tools that we'll use along the way to achieve our goal are going to be determined between now and then. And so stay tuned for what's next. And then, as Bill explained, the team chose the name Power Forward and I really like this name. So we're going to all take ourselves off of mute and we're going to chant this together because this is what we're going to do. We're going to power forward with Final Five and ranked choice voting. So on the count of three, let's all say power forward together, and then we'll just be done, close off, and I'll see many of you before next month. But if for those of you that we won't, I'll see you in May at the meeting when we have when we lay out everything we're going to do. So I'll count to three, and then we'll say power forward together. All right. 1, 2, 3. Power forward. Woohoo! Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
See you, Dale.
All right. How did that go for you, Bill?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I'll
Other
stop
than figuring out who's tag teaming what.